Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Repop Metaverse. This is June Metaverse Week, and I am your host, Xavier Josiah. We are here for the virtual Q&A of the cast of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. We are going to have a lot of fun here with the favorite members of the Jura Tempest Federation. Before I do that, when we get to our introduction here, as we go in, I want to remind everybody, if you like great panels like this, as well as great content and merchandise, please check out findametaverse.com, where it is your one-drop shop for all things anime and more. So with that said, let me introduce you to our guest at this time. First, we have the voice of the great sage herself, actor Mallorie Rodak.
Hello. Thanks for
how's it going?
Me. Good. I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Nice to have you here, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Next, we have Rimuru's crazy best friend, the voice of Demon Lord Milim, Nava, actor Kristen McGuire.
Hi.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Hey, pretty good. I'm very happy to have all of you here. But of course, and last but not least, we have the voice of the one and only Demon Slime Rimuru Tempest herself, actor Brittney Karbowski. Let's bring her in.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you guys here. Let me tell you something. There's two things that I got out of this show. One, I'd never been so jealous of a slime ever in my life for all the things that character has ever done. I was completely enamored of everything that he got to do. And season 2 was a huge step up. And we're going to talk about season 2 first. But before we do that, I must ask, anime is known for its divergent form of storytelling. I mean, like just some crazy and quirky things that has come out, and you guys have auditioned for crazier things, possibly, maybe. With that said, what was the first reaction when you guys were approached about playing a show starring a slime? And Brittney, I'll start with you, of all people.
I was ecstatic, super excited about it. The challenge of a slime being, a creature. I from the beginning knew that the slime would have no, be genderless, and that challenge. And then also, there's just so many times voicing Rimuru where we've just had so much fun. Just the things that Rimuru gets to do. It's always been an adventure.
Oh, yes, it has. And like I said, it's one that I was kind of envious. I'm like, things just look so good for him right now, or him or her, or them, I should say, at this point of this land. What about you, Kristen?
My experience is probably different from everyone else's because I adapted the scripts for Slime, so I was already pretty aware of how crazy Slime was. And Milim doesn't show up until like episode 16. So it was more of like I saw this character in the opening, and then she finally showed up. And it's when you're the writer, like you pretty much always be like, "Oh, I hope I get to play this character," and then like another character will come along, and be like, "Oh, I hope I get to play this character." And Milim was a character that I was like, "Oh, I would love to play Milim," but that's not something I typically get cast for. And so when I got cast, I was really excited. One, because it's like a new challenge, and two, I knew Brittney was playing Slime, and I had worked with Brittney previously on Gamers, so I was really excited, like to be like, I get to act across from Brittney. This will be so much fun. So I guess the difference between me and everyone else is like I kind of already knew what Slime was gonna be, because my character comes in so much later, whereas everyone else is kind of like, all right, well, here's this crazy thing you're gonna be today.
Awesome. And last, Mallorie, I should say. What was your reaction?
Well, I was super excited, but my first reaction was, what is Great Sage? It was kind of a mystery, this conceptual intelligence inside of the mind of another character. That was really interesting to unpack with Cliff, our director, of like, is Great Sage real? Is it just a computer? Is it something bigger than that? And so trying to figure out exactly what Great Sage was really fun. And I've always wanted to do a voice like this. I love doing those sort of Siri-like voices. Please leave a message after the tone. And so knowing that Cliff wanted to kind of play into that with this voice was super, super fun. So I was ecstatic.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And yeah, I'm glad you said that, because we're going to we're gonna revisit that Great Sage enigma right there when I get to you. But fans got a chance to see the epic second season of this show, and where we see Rimuru and the Federation encounter some major threats in the land in the second season. Like the season was like a total 180 from the first season, because you had Rimuru develop friendships and alliances in the first season and really feel like Rimuru was getting to live the life that his former in Japan wasn't ever able to do, but now he's gonna be becoming a demon lord and everything in here. We also have this new threat of otherworlders, as they call it, and holy knights who came in season 2 and just completely wreak havoc in there, and some shocking moments in there. What were your overall thoughts on the direction of season 2? And again, I'll start with you, Brittney.
Oh my gosh.
That's on rap.
I think that Rimuru experiences the biggest heartbreak, I would say, in their existence. And it's not that before in season 1 that Rimuru didn't experience loss, but it was a little bit different with Shizu, because Shizu was suffering. So even though Rimuru lost Shizu, there was still like this relief behind it, like in that she would live on within them. But this loss is a new feeling for Rimuru. It was a new place to go with them. And I mean, I honestly was shook, like in the booth afterwards. It was really hard to like shed that off, man. There was even a point where Cliff was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm actually crying," because it was just so empty and full of despair.
I feel like I know which episode you're even talking about in reference to that, because I felt the same way. I'm like, this is not what I felt in season 1. And I was almost expecting this type of thing to happen in season 1, and it kind of didn't happen. It was just it was up to the Shizu point. It was a feel good moment almost every time. And then season 2 comes, it's like, it kind of smacks you in the face that, okay, now the real stuff is coming, and now we need to hold on to our hats here. So I empathize with you on that. Mallorie, what about you? What did you think of the direction of the season?
Man, season 2 is a really big one for Great Sage. And, candidly, it was just yesterday that I recorded some really powerful scenes. I don't know if it's a spoiler to admit kind of this evolution that Great Sage goes through, but it was really fun to figure out how Great Sage sort of transforms into Raphael, and what the nuances are. And you've also got, another voice in the play, which is Words of the World. So it was like 3 different characters, in one episode, trying to figure out the nuances between them. I did some really deep research into the lore just to figure out more about Great Sage and that transformation. But I would say overall, the tonality of season 2 was just so different than what we experienced in season 1. You could tell there was this real epicness about everything. And that was really exciting. But there were some really emotional moments that I got to be a part of. So I feel you, Brittney, where I was like, oh, my heart is torn in half with this moment.
Absolutely. And Kristen, what about you? How did you feel about season 2's direction?
Oh gosh. Well, again, a lot of my experiences come from not just Milim, who is in this season, but is more behind the scenes. But as the writer adapting the scripts, there's a lot of information I have to unpack to write the scripts. And the anime is wonderful, but there is a lot of things it can't address because it can only put so much into an episode.
Right.
And so, for me, it's the hardest part about this season is knowing all the extra things about everything, like knowing about Great Sage and like the fact that Great Sage wants to evolve, and that is a really unexpected, not normal thing that says a lot about Great Sage, or knowing about Hakuro and Hakuro's plan to deal with the Otherworlders, and that it's actually really well thought out and extremely brutal. And they don't really go into that in the anime to explain like all these plans that are meant to bring justice in the most brutal way without spoiling anything. And so for me, it's just writing these episodes and being like, fans aren't going to be ready for this. Fans aren't going to be ready for episode 34 or 35 or 36. Like, it's every time I would finish writing an episode, I'm like, oh man, no one is ready for this. And so it is a very heavy season and there's a lot going on. And so for me, it's just about like, how can I adapt scripts in a way that's going to portray all this really vital information in a way that's easy for the actors to portray that information and make sure that everybody has all the information they need to direct the show and act in the show. And so there's a lot of notes. There's a lot of
I'm
notes
sure.
next to the lines in Slime. These ladies can attest. I leave a lot of
They're
notes.
wonderful.
Actually, this thing. So, yeah, for me, it's just trying to make sure I do justice by the English dialogue.
Well, let me follow up with that since you are the writer. As an ADR writer, of course, I mean, you have to try to, assimilate it into the English kind of ideology and culture. How far apart is the Japanese, original to the English dub in terms of like how much did you really have to change in that new?
I generally try not to adapt scripts too much because our fan base, comes from people that read the light novel and read the manga. The only thing I really did is I punched up Rimuru's dialogue a little bit. They did that kind of already in the Japanese subtitles to kind of prove that like Rimuru isn't from this world. So for me, it's usually just about like punching up his dialogue, making a few moments funnier here and there.
There are some slang terms that I've heard him say on the show. I'm like, yeah, that's not really, that's not normal from where they landed there at.
I can't take credit for all of it because there's a lot of stuff that like, as much as I love writing Rimuru, I am not a dude. So there are things that I say, I'm like, this is how guys talk, right? And then the director who is a dude is like, he's like, yeah. But I mean, mostly the only thing I really do that's a challenge is trying to keep things consistent in the world of Slime. I have to remember that like Rimuru is from this other world. Some other characters are from this other world. So those characters can speak more, colloquially, and these characters can't. Or there are times that I'm like, as a scriptwriter, as someone who's trying to make sure that this world is consistent, like, okay, these things don't make sense. Right. Originally, Milim says bestie first. The first season, she says bestie. And I'm like, well, that seems weird that Milim would know what the word bestie means.
Right.
Because that's a slang term. And that's not something that really exists in this world. So my workaround was to have Rimuru say it first.
Right.
And say it in a way that...
Right.
Yeah, the rhymes, and just have her copy it, which became like a really iconic thing, was like bestie for restie. Or there's, in the original J, there's a baseball joke where she says Seifu. And I'm like, well, how would Milim know what baseball is? Baseball doesn't exist in this world. And so we wrote like, it's good, it's all good. And I've had people be like, why'd you take out the baseball joke? And I'm like, because baseball wouldn't exist in this world.
Right.
And so that's my thing. It's just like trying to be like, all right, what should be here? I try not to say things like, what on earth? Because Earth is our planet. And so it sounds silly, but there's actually a lot of things like I have to keep in mind when writing that I'm like, oh, that's something to say.
I totally understand that because of the fact that I've watched, content before, especially in terms of anime. And yeah, you do pick up, like, you don't make a big deal out of it, but that intricate detail really does kind of play into it. So I totally get it.
I hope that people like it. That's all I really want in the end. Is like, I hope people like it. But I do read the light novel and the manga so that it'll be accurate. And I have like stacks of them next to my desk. I was gonna put them away, but I guess we're getting ready to go on the second core, and so I was like, I might as well leave them out because I'm gonna need them in like a month.
Right. So this one is for Brittney. I got a question for you. With Rimuru, you have a character at one point who was a man with a lonely and unfulfilled life, but somehow gets a second chance at living life, their way. How did you go about approaching a character like that?
Originally, the fun thing is at first all we really they're just gathering Hipote herbs. We don't really know what the purpose of that is or why that is. And there was like that whole ep of just like the funny slime going through the cave, just gathering power. Before then, I have no idea where this is going. I always joked that if I was Rimuru and I had lived a life that maybe some would consider not fruitful, that if I had come back, I would have been immediately like, what's the most powerful thing I can be? I don't even care if it's evil. I tried the good way. I'm going to try the bad way now. Like, I would be that. But Rimuru is like very good, and Rimuru's core is very good. And his consciousness was transferred, into this slime form. And what's crazy now when we talk, I didn't actually know about the second season and what was going to happen at the time when I was saying this, which is actually so funny. But I always really, really admired Rimuru's path, and that Rimuru chooses to be good. And while voicing them, I always had in the back of my mind that it was really important to have that core good value in almost every bit of reasoning, and always to have like that sound of hope, which is one of the reasons why they're so lovable, and that people can relate even though they're really OP, is that the flaw really is the human element in Rimuru.
Well, not even just him, but the other worlders too that come into land, because they're trying to figure out their own path and everything in it as well. So it all plays in, and I love it, and that's why I felt like season 1 was such a great. It was a big hug.
Yes.
And they hugged you very long for maybe what it was, like 20 some episodes until season 2 came in, and then they let you go like, okay, hug is over and this is what's going to happen now. This is what I'm going to warn you about.
It's like a giant friend party, and then all of a sudden they just drop a bomb on it, and you're just like, why?
Now that I comfort you, I got something that you need to know.
What a world.
Yes. So Mallorie, I have a question for you. You play one of the biggest enigmas in the series, and you kind of talked about this. Out of nowhere, this central, I consider it a central intelligence for a reason, but it saves Satoru Mikami's soul and reincarnates it into a slime to what we now know as Rimuru Tempest. The Great Sage is, in some ways, this disembodied character, I should say, comes off as a god to me. In your opinion, who is really controlling this world? Is it Rimuru or is it the Great Sage at this point? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's a deep question. And honestly, Kristen might be able to follow it up with what she knows.
Without spoiling it?
But for me, I think about the concept of Great Sage. I saw something recently, and Kristen, you can tell me if this is right or not, where Great Sage basically borrows the words of the world to be able to speak to Rimuru, which I thought was a really interesting premise that I hadn't heard before. But I think about Great Sage, and there's something really mysterious about that character. But what I love is, as you go through the series, you start to see just a little bit of personality start to develop. She's got a little bit of snark, that happens in a few of those lines where you realize, like, okay, at first I thought this might just be, a conceptual intelligence without, devoid of personality, that sort of a thing. But then you realize there might be something more there. And I think season 2 really starts to play that out to a greater degree. And so that's been really fun to see the character evolve from the beginning of like, what is this, to now where, there's a whole potential new future for Great Sage that could happen. So it's been kind of fun to unravel this mystery and research, because I think there still is a lot of mystery about, what Great Sage is. Which
scares me unconditionally because it's all just like the season 1 into season 2 thing. I feel like because I haven't read the manga and haven't gone forward, that I feel like I need not to only feel trustworthy of this embodied, source for so long, because anything can happen at this point. And I love this kind of feeling that I have that is leading me in, because you just don't know yet.
I would say that when Rimuru, when Mikami is going into this world, the words he actually hears are words of the world. It's not Great Sage yet. Great Sage is his ultimate skill. In the light novel, the voices are slightly different. I think they even discussed that at one point. But in the anime, they're just like, it's all going to sound like Great Sage, which is awesome for Mallorie. In the voiceover world, you're like, the more work, the better.
Right.
But I think there's some confusion sometimes about what Great Sage is. Great Sage is ultimately a skill. And I don't know this for sure. It's only a theory. so nobody quote me about it. But I believe that Great Sage probably started off as a blank slate and then is probably influenced by Rimuru, hence the snark and the things we see. So it's interesting to see. I agree with Mallorie. Like, it's really interesting to see Great Sage evolve in the same way that, you know, the monsters evolve when Rimuru names them, to see Great Sage get their own desires and to want to be better, to want to help Rimuru. I think that's really cool. It makes you wonder more about them. I don't have more answers on it than anybody else. I just think it's cool.
None that you can say, at least.
I mean, they're all on the internet.
Oh, that internet. But Kristen, let's talk Milim. Milim is a character like with some layers. At one point, she is a childlike, kind of babyish type of character, but at other times she could be more serious, focused, especially during battles and such. What about the character's personality that you are most interested, intrigued by, especially after learning her past in season 2?
I think there's a lot of Milim has layers like an onion.
Very much.
I think a lot of people think Milim is childish, or I've had a lot of fans be like, she's evil, isn't she? And I'm like, no.
Misunderstood.
Milim has been around for over 2,000 years, and she's seen a lot of things, and I think she comes off as childish because she still does have a very childlike personality. But what a lot of people don't know is Milim is actually incredibly intelligent. And a lot of the things that happen in season 2 are by her design. And you can kind of catch glimpses of it and stuff like that when I can't say her name, Euron is talking to Clayman, and they're like, what do you mean Milim's already attacked the Beast Kingdom? It was supposed to be a week from now. Like, you know, we can act like, oh, that Milim, she's so unpredictable, but what I know from reading the light novels and things like that is like, that's all intentional. That's all Milim playing her own fiddle. So I guess it's one of those things I'm like, I wish people would give Milim a little more credit, because I think they're really quick to write her off. And she definitely has those moments, but she's a demon lord, you know, for a reason. She's quite capable and quite intelligent. But she's also very lonely. And
which is why she clings on to Rimuru so much, I take it.
Right, especially after you find out about her backstory in season 2, you know, they kind of mentioned that a little bit more in like the manga and the light novel, and they kind of skimmed over it in the anime, which made me sad. Because they asked Milim at one point, like, Milim, why do you hang out here? Why don't you just go home? And she's like, because I don't have any friends there. She's like, I have servants, but I don't have friends. And so it's like, oh my gosh, like Milim is just around here because she's lonely, and Rimuru is the first person to offer her friendship. And I'm like, man, that's sad. Like, she's been around for 2,000 years. She just wants a friend.
Right. No, I agree. And in some cases, you know, we do hear slack from her, but I think in hindsight, people are just there. I think more people are relatable to that character because of that, more than they are just saying like, oh, she's a baby, or she's, you know, because I think a lot of people in the real world, in our real world, has had those experiences. I mean, so she's one of the more intriguing characters indeed in this series, and I feel like we're going to see a lot more of her as time goes by. So I'm looking very much forward to that. Speaking of looking forward to things, and before I even do that, because you guys talked about, some of you read from the manga as well. Now, being that, you know, you have some of you per se prefer to wait to see what's going to happen, or are you reading ahead? Brittney, were you one of the ones that said there was reading the manga as well?
No, I like to wait and find out like as I go
and be shocked. Yeah.
Yes, and like experience it. You know.
She just gets texts from me that are like, oh,
yeah. She'll be like, oh my gosh, this episode. And I'm like, no. I did have some spoilers on season 2 before, but just like general ones, I didn't really want to see it. I didn't want to like have some sort of notion in my head of the way it was going to be before we were in the booth recording it.
And Mallorie, what about you? Do you go straight ahead, or you wait for the suspense?
I waited for the suspense, but I did receive some spoilers on Great Sage's transformation. And so I knew it was coming up. And Cliff had told me a few little tidbits that he knew as well about kind of the evolution of the character.
Cliff Champion, I take it, right?
Yes, our director, who's fantastic, wonderful, so much fun to work with.
He's awesome.
Yeah. And so then right before the transformation, I did go deep into the lore and the internet just to see what people said about it, because I felt like it was such an important moment for the character. I wanted to do it justice and make sure that I understood the nuances and the intent behind, you know, some of the decisions that Great Sage makes in that moment. So that part I really did go deep.
So moving on to some other kind of news in regards to the universe of the Slime series. We also have a spin-off series, the Slime Diaries, which is getting some great praise from fans right now. And they're clamoring to hear their favorite actors reprise their roles. For those who have not seen that show, have you guys checked it out, or have you guys been involved with that? Or can you give our viewers a little bit on what the series may be about, or also when can we get an English version of it? Kristen, do you have any answers for that?
I don't, and honestly, even if I did, I wouldn't be able to tell you if it wasn't announced.
Of course.
So
have you all heard of? Have you guys had a chance to check out the series?
Just like bits and pieces from what I've seen. People will tag us in things online and stuff like that.
Fun little clips, like the one with Milim splatting Rimuru.
Right.
Yeah, that one was fun.
Those are fun.
As far as the OVA goes, I love them. The OVAs are so hilarious, especially when it's Rimuru trying to teach them some of the more Earth-like type of things, like the sumo wrestling and everything. Do you guys happen to have a favorite or any kind of? Because there's some of them that are just drop dead funny. Brittney, I'll start with you. Any ones that come to your mind?
Yes. Okay, so there's a part in the OAD, the sumo wrestling one, where Rimuru turns into a butt. And there's actually another part where something like there's a wardrobe like malfunction, and he was like so sure that was the moment that was going to get me. And for some reason, like it didn't. I was like, whatever. But then when we got to the part where Rimuru actually like looks like a butt, and in the Japanese, there was no change in voice, but Cliff and me were like looking at each other, you know, and he's like, we should do a butt voice. And I tried something, and like, honestly, I was like, how do I sound like a butt? Like, how do I make that kind of more nasally, like Rimuru sound, and then how do I make that into a butt? And I was having some trouble. And then Cliff was like, you know, just like make it really jowly, like Nixon. And oh my gosh, I don't even know, man. Just that direction was it. And that was probably, even afterwards, you know, Cliff's like, okay, we can get back to work. And I just couldn't. I like dropped down to the ground. Like they couldn't even see me. I was just on the ground, like just laughing. Oh my gosh. Everyone should hear Cliff read, you know, things in butt voice. That's all I'm saying.
I've heard it a lot.
It's amazing. I love it.
It's really amazing, like the first 10 times.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Kristen, is that your favorite too, or do you have another episode that like?
I mean, I do like the first two OADs are definitely like for funsies. I like the one where they go to the lake only because like it takes those classic harem tropes of like, oh no, a tentacle monster. But you know, and Rimuru's like, this is awful. Like where he's like all the girls are being like held by the tentacle monster, and you're all like, oh, classic. And you know, and Rimuru's like, this is awful. And then like
he said it so slowly too, like he's really like he's kind of being sarcastic.
Yeah, he's like, this is terrible. And then and then it turns and like all the guys are also in the same position, and he's like, this is terrible. Like,
no, this is really bad. Stop.
It's like there's all these things. He's like, look at all the girls in their swimsuits. He's like, oh my god, and it's like, oh, Ronga in a swimsuit. And it's like, and then like all the guys are like doing sexy poses too, and he's like, and so I like that it takes that trope of like, oh my gosh, fan service, and then like also just as seriously applies it to the boys. I think that makes it so funny.
It is
right.
Yeah.
And we always do have to forget that Rimuru is kind of a slightly of a pervy type of character as well.
Yes, he still has his preferences even in this new form.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Mallorie, what about you? Do you have a favorite?
I mean, I can't top butts. That was just it. I mean, maybe that just shows you my sense of humor, but that takes the cake for sure.
So I have I have one more question, and then we got a little game to play. So, but before I do that, I want to thank you all. You guys have been awesome. Really, I'm a big fan of you all and your talents here. So definitely pleased to have you all here. In your opinion, what is the biggest takeaway that you can get from this show? Brittney, I'll start with you again.
At first, in the first season, I would say that the takeaway is that no matter what you evolve into, you can always be good. You can always choose good, no matter where you are. There's and that even if you make bad choices, like some of the characters, you can adjust, you can change, you can evolve. And I would say that in season 1, that's the takeaway. But in season 2, I don't even know so far exactly what it's going to be. I think it's going to have to do with the journey and acceptance and forgiveness, maybe. Yeah.
Very interesting. Mallorie, what about you?
Oh man, when I think about Great Sage, I think that the takeaway has got to be something to do with evolution, of you as a human being, how, people can grow and progress and get better. And you see Great Sage do that. She, wants something and eventually goes and gets it. And so I think, that certainly is a big theme, is evolution. But then also I think, like, in a weird way, friendship, because Rimuru and Great Sage, they work together so well and rely on each other. And there's a really special bond there that I think is really cool. And so, I think that that's an important takeaway too.
It's really funny that you said the word evolution, especially in terms of the Great Sage, because that's my biggest fear about the Great Sage situation right now. So let's see how I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen as we go on. And last but not least, Kristen, what is your biggest takeaway?
I've always felt like the biggest takeaway in Slime, and this is the writer in me, like trying to make everything into something like beautiful and magical.
Right.
I've always thought the biggest takeaway was just like not judging people based on their appearances. Rimuru comes from this other world where in this world monsters are looked down upon, and he doesn't see them as anything different. He likes humans and he likes monsters, and he wants them to live together. And it didn't matter that it was like orcs or goblins or wolves. It was like, cool, well, if you're cool, I'm cool, like let's all be cool together. And I've always thought that was the biggest takeaway, is just learning more about people despite their outside appearances. And again, maybe that's the romantic in me, just like overthinking it, but I'm like,
no, I would agree with that. I would co-sign with that from a standpoint that I did see that in season 2 a lot, especially with the Otherworlders. And it was when that happened, when those incidents happened, which kind of was almost fantasy based on reality at that point, that I became empathetic by that, especially. And also I noticed the twist of this series is that all of the monsters are actually the protagonist and the human-like characters are the antagonists here. So it kind of switches on. It's like not everything is what you think it is. And I think that is a great kind of thing to acknowledge about this series, and it's awesome. And that premise to me is what makes, I think, this show so great. Along with, again, Brittney saying that like the good in everybody and the good in Rimuru as well. So great answers, people. I really appreciate this. So I got a game for you guys.
okay.
Are you willing and ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to play a game I like to call That Time I Quiz You Guys About Slime. These are going to be some multiple choice questions, about 4 of them, and I'm really interested in seeing what kind of responses is going to come out of you. So, you guys ready?
Yes.
Do we like
All
put
right.
our hands up to answer?
No, I'll moderate you guys, and it's not going to be like a buzzer thing.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be like a buzzer thing where you slap your hand on the table.
Just slap your computer.
I have my notebook.
I want you to high five your camera when you get the answer. Okay, first question here. If you had a chance to be reincarnated, what would you become, Kristen? I'm going to start with you.
You said it's multiple choice?
Yep. Well, not multiple choice. Let's not say multiple choice, but say like, for instance, like what was your actual response from this?
Oh, I guess I'd be a unicorn. That'd be awesome.
What exactly would your abilities, except for being majestic and beautiful? Or what would be any different than you are now?
Magical and having like cool hair.
How was that any different from now?
I guess,
except you don't have the horn.
I want to be a teleportation unicorn. I want to be able to teleport. I hate traffic.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that answer at all.
I just want to be there. I'm really impatient.
I can see a scenario where you just teleport and out of the blue you scare the living crap out of people every single time.
I mean, get out of my way.
You just show up at the front of the line at the grocery store and just like push the person out.
I was here first. I just be really great to like go to conventions and stuff and not have to do the plane part.
Yes.
You make it right about that time, right, ready to be on stage for a live panel. Just
yeah, it'd be like I'm here and like all my.
How much of an awesome introduction that would be.
But I would also be a unicorn, so take that how you will.
Right. Mallorie, what about you?
Well, I have a show and tell for what I would be.
Uh-oh. This is going to be epic.
She brings back a computer. She's like, I'd be a great
a house cat because you sleep all day, you get pet all day, you're soft and squishy and wonderful, and you get taken care of. So I would be
and entitled.
Mildred, by the way.
And if anything like my cat, entitled.
Yes.
Never fails. I'm not mad at that either. Brittney, how are you going to top this?
You know what was funny is I was going to say Chihuahua, but I have no idea where my dogs are. I actually was because people hold you all the time. You're like tiny, so you can like fit easily in small areas. Right. If you go to the bathroom on the floor, like everybody's like, yeah, whatever, it's a Chihuahua. So you could just pretty much get away with whatever. I mean, it just seems like the life.
I like you just have like all these like real answers, and I'm over here like, oh, I'd be a mythical creature. You know
what's funny is I just keep thinking of a teleporting unicorn like injuring people.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
The teleporting unicorn strikes again.
If this was produced by Adult Swim, the results would not be the same.
You can ride on my back in your cat and chihuahua forms, and I'll just take you with me.
And just wreak havoc on everybody.
Yeah. Yes. The trio.
Imagine the news reports of that happening. All right, next question. And then this one is multiple choice.
Okay.
If you had if you had to choose one reliable intelligence, what would you choose? And you kind of made mention of this before. Would it be Great Sage or iPhone Siri? Mallorie, I'll start with you.
Oh, that's tough. You're going to make me choose between my character and my iPhone? I have to be loyal. It's Great Sage. Because that processing power, I feel like, is maybe a little bit more than the iPhone. Just a guess. But I feel like it might be.
Brittney, let's go with you next. What would you pick between the two?
Yeah, I don't even think that's a question. Like Great Sage for sure. My Siri doesn't even know what I'm saying ever. Like every time that I'm driving and I'm like, hey Siri, send a message. It never knows what I'm saying ever. It still doesn't know how to spell my daughter's name. She's 6. I mean, how many times do I have to write it in the phone? And every time it says Eddie, and Eddie and Edie don't sound the same. And I just think maybe my Siri is a little less intelligent than it should be. For real, my husband mumbles, it knows everything that my husband is saying. I'm a voice actor, but it knows nothing that I'm saying. And I feel like I speak really crisply and like, how do you not know what I'm saying? And no, it's every time. And also it corrects the duck, and I never mean that. Ever.
Right, exactly.
That's ducking.
I think we've all had that at one point. Kristen, what about you?
I mean, unequivocally great sage.
Yes.
They can perform surgery.
That is true.
You could just be like, I don't want to do this. You take over, and they'll do it. Like, I want to see Siri do that.
That's going to be like 5 iPhone generations later, maybe.
I mean,
no,
maybe
actually,
I don't
5
want to
generations
see
later
Siri
to
do
actually
that,
cook us
but
breakfast.
For real.
Yeah.
But yeah, great sage. No contest.
Yeah, and I will co-sign with you both. After watching the series, I looked at my iPhone and almost chucked it.
Get on great sage's level.
All right, third question. This is going to be an interesting one too. This technically is multiple choice in a case, but you can pick whatever you want from the series. If you had one choice, which character would make a great roommate? Kristen, I will start with you.
Oh no, I wasn't ready. A great roommate.
Whichever character.
Ranga, because he could live in my shadow. So, you know, I would be down for that. I would love to have Ranga as a roommate, and then I could get on Ranga and ride around, and Ranga can teleport. So dreams come true.
I almost feel like that you're gonna make that happen in the course of maybe 2-3 years from now. I feel like it's been in your mind way before this panel.
Guys, I just realized I really just want to be able to teleport places.
Bus pass, car.
I'll just take my giant wolf.
Exactly. Mallorie, what about you?
Oh, this is tough. I feel like I might go Rimuru. I feel like Rimuru would be a good roommate. Double as maybe like a pillow. Put your head on, real squishy and nice. Yeah, I think Rimuru would be my answer.
I'm really glad that like he's the type of slime that doesn't have resolve all over you, but and everybody feels like they just want. And by the way, speaking of which, am I the only one that noticed that that Rimuru's gotten bigger as the episodes go by? I swear to goodness he wasn't that big in the beginning of the series, and then all of a sudden, like when they carry him, he's huge.
He does grow every time he evolves or takes on a monster. He grows taller.
Right, especially when he I forgot the dragon lord's name.
Eldora?
Yes. And I feel like he started growing and evolving from that point. So I was just like, noticing, I'm like,
he also grew after the Orc Lord. If you look, his hair gets longer after the Orc Lord, and he grows again. Gosh, they mention it in this season. He's like, if I gotten taller, it might be after this current arc. I don't want to spoil it.
I know you got to be real careful. Let's just move away from that one. Brittney, what about you? Who would make a good roommate for you?
You know, every time I think of a character, I just keep thinking of reasons why not to have them as a roommate. Like Veldora can't do the dishes because Veldora's hands just stay there like this all the time. Mm-hmm. I feel like Ranga would have like an exorbitant amount of puppy breath. I don't know about like that filling up the room while you're trying to watch Netflix and chill. Right? Just me, just like right here.
My Jack Russell Terrier is actually pretty good.
It's like no, yeah. And then, I just get every character. I just keep maybe Gopta because Gopta's a surprise.
Gopta would be a terrible roommate.
No, I feel like a great roommate. Like Gopta's just like just deals with everything. Like it doesn't even matter. I feel like that's the only character that Rimuru just craps on, and like it's just. Everybody's just like, it's just the way it is, you know? Yeah. Gopta would be good. Gopta can fight, you know?
That is true.
Yeah.
Well, but last question is going to be very interesting in a sense. I'm glad I can safely say that I don't have this problem. My wife can attest to this. But who between you three is a worse cook than Shion? Mallorie, I'll start with you.
Ooh, who between us?
Of us are worse than Shion. Have you seen her cooking? It transforms into monsters.
Yeah. So are we all in agreement that you guys are like, skilled enough that your food doesn't come alive?
Raise your hand if your food has ever fallen into a lake and turned into a huge tentacle monster.
Last year. 2020 was a very messed up year, so I mean, things happen. Well, ladies, thank you so very much. I'm sure our viewers and your fans appreciate the time that you had with us. Before we end this segment, I want to give you guys a chance to plug where you could be found with your friends and your fans and all that stuff. So, Mallorie, I'll start with you. Where can your fans find you?
I am on Twitter. I have my Twitter handle right there by my name. It's Mallorie with a 0 as the O. So follow me. I love to engage with fans on Twitter and talk to you guys about the shows. It's a ton of fun. And so, yeah, I would love to see you there.
Awesome. Kristen, what about you? Where can your fans find you?
Usually in my home. No,
so you got fans right in front of you like it's the Today Show?
I'm on Twitter too. I put my Twitter handle up there, but I think it's covered by a logo. My Twitter handle is Chris Comics, KRIS Comics, like comic books.
Right.
So it's Twitter, my website. It's all the same. It's called branding. Oh, they moved it. Thanks, guys. Yeah, but it's I'm on there like way more than like Facebook or anything else.
All right, and last but not least, Brittney, Rimuru, where can they find you?
Yeah, I just put my name in there. I didn't put any of the cool stuff in mine because I don't even know. I wasn't thinking. I interact most on Twitter at the Karbowski. And I also am pretty good with responding on my Facebook page. It's Brittney Karbowski.
And ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at Xavier Josiah on Instagram, and as well as my podcast, ACMG Presents Talk Time Live, which is on the website, talktimelive.com. You can find every episode of all things anime, comics, movies, and games, and great guests like these as well. So, ladies, thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Repop, as well, for bringing this all together.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes,
thank you so much.
This was fun.
That will do it for us. On behalf of myself and the cast of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, all I got to say is learn to let go, live life, and love all things anime, comics, movies, and games. This is the Repop Metaverse. We are out of here. Take care.
Bye.